Welcome to the 30th episode of Timely Topics. I'm your host, Rory McGloin, and I'm joined by my confident co-host, Jen Matthew.
Hello.
In this episode, we're diving into the concept of confidence, where it comes from, how it changes our perspectives on life, and what we can do to ensure that we're feeling our best when we need it most. Also, spring is finally here, so Jen and I will dive into the changing season and how it makes us see the world in a new light, or sunshine for that matter. And finally, we're also going to discuss breaking away from the norm and the things that we already know how to do to try and learn new things. And of course, we'll round things off with our good idea, bad idea segment. You ready to go, Jen?
Let's go.
Welcome to the Timely Topics Show, where we're bringing you all of the buzz and banter of today's business conversations. Straight from our studios in downtown Hartford, with your hosts, Rory McGloin and Jennifer Matthew.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Timely Topics. Good to be back, Jen. Spring has finally sprung, as they say here in New England. Thank goodness for that. It was long, it was cold, it was snowy. Are you as excited as I am the spring's here?
We were talking about how we cannot function past like 6 p.m. because the sun goes down and thus my brain capacity goes down. Now the sun is out a little bit later. Like the birds are chirping.
Yeah.
I can go outside and walk and not feel like I just want to run back inside.
Yeah. One of the things that was great is Raid and I were out just driving around and she goes, "Look, it's grass," and we were just so excited to see the ground again. And I know there's a lot of snow lovers out there, and they had a great season up north and for skiing and snowboarding, so it's super cool. But as somebody who likes getting out and running around on the playing fields, it was just nice to see the grass. And it is interesting, Jen, like it almost feels, we talked about this, like the seasons do provide like a reawakening of your spirit in some regards. So, we go through the hibernation period and now the reawakening coming. So for our listeners, like even from a business standpoint, I think that the seasons are good, right? Like I think good businesses understand the power and value of seasons. For you, as you come into spring, like what's the thing maybe you like look forward to? What are you most excited about?
Other than like warm weather and sunshine on my skin. But I like that idea. I just saw that there's a book called Wintering. So it's the idea of like you kind of go and retract within yourself as part of a season. It doesn't have to necessarily be in the winter, but we had just talked about that in the last episode of how like I kind of go internal. And so in my going internal process, I've been doing a lot of self-reflecting and thinking about this whole concept of autopilot and time. And so I was thinking about like, why does time seem like it goes by so quickly as you get older? Why? And what I really started to think about is that when you're younger, you're constantly immersing yourself in something new. You're going to school, you are trying something for the first time, like you're around like this awe and wonder constantly. So your days go by slower just because you're like, I feel like you're more present, you're learning, you're engaged. But once we become an adult, it's like we almost hit autopilot, and every single day it's almost like we're doing the exact same thing. So of course days go by quicker, things blend together. You think about like when you get into the car and all of a sudden you show up at the grocery store, you show up at work and you go, oh, I don't even remember like half of that drive. Like that's life. Yeah. Right? So I was just thinking about how do we try to find ways to show up to experience awe and wonder in more depth and do that more intentionally, not just on vacation when we naturally do that, but in our everyday life.
You know what's so cool is I'm reading this book right now by Chase Jarvis. It's called Never Play It Safe. And I've been going around telling everybody about it. And the thing that you just spoke about that is connected to the book is he talks about the power of attention. What we pay attention to is what defines our experience. Yeah. So it's almost as if, right, the changing of the seasons, which is where we started, you're talking about this idea of learning new things, or sometimes we become on autopilot. What happens there is like we stop paying attention maybe to the things around us and we start paying attention to our thoughts. And that old axiom of like you can get lost in your thoughts, like we probably do. And as you get older, theoretically, right, maybe you're having more thoughts that are internal as opposed to experiencing the world from an external space. I have to say, I really recommend this book to any of our listeners that want to take greater control over their mindsets. He gives this analogy, and I want to share this, and I shared this with you earlier in the week. Jarvis talks about attention is a flashlight. And you only have one flashlight and you can only shine it on one thing at once. And you get to choose what you want to shine your flashlight on. And that includes your feelings and thoughts, right? So we are not our feelings. We are what we choose to pay attention to. And I liked what you just said in regards to when it comes time to come out of the hibernation, it's an opportunity to refocus what we're paying attention to. And I think that there's a reminder for all of us that we don't need to go through the harsh winters to simply stop and say, what do I choose to pay attention to today? And how is that going to dictate the world that I see?
I also think like we talked about judgment or always having to make an opinion about something that we are navigating. So I think about like being stuck in traffic. And sometimes if we're really trying to get somewhere, we get really frustrated. And the whole time we're just annoyed and wishing that we could go faster. Or maybe we're in the car with somebody and we could actually be spending that time having a great conversation or listening to a podcast or being more present in our time. But instead we're choosing to focus on the part, which is I'm stuck in traffic and I'm annoyed.
Yep.
And I think that that's true. I have the choice to do what I want with the time that I have. And if I choose to look at it that way, it's like that's how you're spending your life.
And like what you pay attention to,
Yeah.
right? And it's so simple, but yet I think we, of course, become clouded in our judgment at times. We become distracted. And so it's a good reminder, I think, as the seasons change, that we have the choice as to what we pay attention to. And I think, one of the things that we've talked about in the past that we get excited about, and our readers actually connect with us when we're out chatting with them, is this idea of trying to find like good or trying to find opportunity in the day-to-day. We've talked about this idea of like explore your surroundings, right? Be alert and be present and be diligent to the things around you. That's just choice, right? It's the choice of what we pay attention to. So it's nice for us to now finally feel like that reset has come, and we are maybe in some regards almost forced to pay attention to new things, because there's things out there that we literally haven't been able to see for 7 months that are now, back with us.
One of the things that I thought I really liked that you had mentioned about the book was the concept of being all in on something. Yeah. And we talk a lot about learning, and it's a little bit about experiencing something new for the first time. But I like the idea of going all in on something that it is I want to learn or be better at, because how do you know that you are actually good at something or that you gave it your all and then can say, that wasn't for me, versus I didn't actually put it all in, so I didn't end up becoming good at it, so it wasn't a good fit for me.
Yeah. Simon Sinek had a guest on his podcast there a couple of weeks ago talking about this exact topic, right? And talking about this idea of like, can you live without public fear? What really holds us back potentially is this idea that we're not going to go all in for fear of failure. But in reality, that's probably the biggest mistake that you'll make in trying to learn, to adopt, to grow, is having the fear. Now, we've talked about it on the show, but you start to kind of remind yourself that if I really want to be good at something, I have to go all in. And the only reason that we don't is because of some public fear. Well, like if it's true to your values, as we always talk about, like let it rip, right? And go all in. And this is a reminder for anybody listening to this, like regardless of if it's a relationship, if it's your startup business, right? If it's managing your team, if you think it's important enough to pay attention to, then like you have to give it everything, or you just have to let it go. Right? It can't be like one or the other. It's got to be like, this is important enough for me to think about, so therefore it's going to get all my attention, or I'm not going to give it really any attention necessarily, and I'm just going to let it be. I'm going to give it grace and move on to other things that I think are important.
What are the things that you wish you could do if you didn't care what other people thought of you?
Yeah, what a question. Yeah, what a question, right? To be able to give feedback that comes from a positive place without fear of maybe having the wrong response would probably be one of my things. And wanting, kind of living a purpose that is to help others communicate effectively, right, comes with feedback. And so you're apprehensive to speak your mind on truths that you think are morally or ethically correct, right? And not wanting to be necessarily triggering audiences that you care about. I think those are places where we hold back, and there's probably a deeper conversation here for a future episode maybe that we have to dive into.
Yeah, that's great. Wow.
Cool. Let's find out what our friends think, right? What a seriously opening banter that was. But hey, a lot of fun stuff. Thanks for everybody that's been checking in. We have to say, as we're rolling along here, we've been having some great guests on the show. We've been having good interactions. We've been seeing some comments come through. So please keep it coming. We love featuring your comments on the show. And our first one was from our friend Jose, who was on the show a couple weeks ago and just kind of had a nice comment for us and said, absolutely amazing experience, privileged to be on the Timely Topic show. Thank you to the entire team, to Abby and Olivia for the opportunity. Jen and Rory doing outstanding work. I'm honored to contribute to their mission.
It's so fun to have guests on and to be in the seat. And it's fun to see them sitting like in each other's seat, right? And just being able to have a dialogue and a conversation and add a little bit of context. And I think a better connection to our audience that maybe finds value in these little nuggets that everyone's saying. So thank you so much for joining us. I think that was a great episode and looking forward to continuing on with the amazing guests. Yeah. Okay, so Sarah reached out and said, I listened to the recent episode on self-awareness, and the idea that feedback is a gift really stuck with me. It made me realize how often we instinctively resist feedback instead of seeing it as someone investing in our growth. Really thoughtful conversations. Thank you for putting that out there.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, I know feedback is a gift is a phrase that's been coined and probably floating along for a long time. For me, it was given to me as a friend. In a situation where I was kind of dealing with some feedback from some folks that I wasn't really, feeling. And he said to me, he goes, feedback's a gift. And it just never went away from me. I was like, oh, wow, changing my perspective on anything. So Sarah, I hope that one sticks with you and share it with your friends. It's a good one. We got a comment from Catherine. Thanks for the book recommendation, Jen. Born to Walk is now on the list. I'm hoping it motivates me to get a few more miles in each week. Really enjoyed this past episode.
Yeah. Go out for your walk, experience new things, experience it with some awe and wonder. Find one thing on your walk that you are inspired by or you feel like is amazing or blows you away.
How about this? Like one thing that, like for me, like one of the things I love to do is like I look at things and I ask why. Like, why is that the way it is?
Oh, interesting.
That's how my walks go.
Love that. Okay, so Corinne reached out and said, I listened to the episode on self-awareness and found the conversation really thoughtful. One thing that stood out to me was that the idea of self-awareness isn't just about reflection, but also about understanding how other people experience you. I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for leaders who want to build more of that awareness without feeling like they're constantly second-guessing themselves.
I don't know. I mean, I do know, and the answer is a tough one. It's you got to ask people. I love to just go right to the source and say, hey, how did you receive that? Or how did you understand? And I think that kind of, for me, from a leadership standpoint, when leaders look for feedback, when leaders are vulnerable and they're willing to take on feedback, I mean, that's the greatest, right? I think that there was an old framework around leadership being like, I'll tell you what to do because I know better than you. I think the modern version of leadership is changing to a listening model, to one that's saying, how do I care for my people? Like, how do I protect my people? And I can't do that by always just simply giving them instructions. I have to be willing to take feedback on. And I think if a leader has the best interest in the team at heart, but they're not sure if it's landing the way they want it to, you have to ask the question. And if you're going to occupy the title, this is important, the title of leadership, then you should be almost mandating yourself to go and do it. It's different maybe if you're trying to be a leader and you don't have the title, it can be more awkward. But I would encourage people just ask for feedback. And look, if folks are willing to give you feedback, that's usually a great sign. And then you hope that you've inspired them to do the same and to say, can you give me some feedback?
Yeah, I truly believe that self-awareness cannot be done in isolation. You really do need the second piece of that, which is getting the other person's input.
Yeah, and sorry, one other thing that comes to mind there, Jen, that just has me jumping out of my chair is self-awareness is relative to the room that you're in, right? It's constantly changing. So if you get feedback from somebody and it doesn't jive with where you think you are and it doesn't align, go keep asking, right? And begin to start to determine, like, what are the audiences that understand you better? What characteristics do they have in common, right? Do they come from the same background? Do they share the same values? Do they have the same purpose, mission? Do they have the same hobbies? Then you've got an intentional decision to make, right? Like, should you be making an effort to put yourself in circles where your self-awareness is greater? I think so, right? And there's going to be times where there's going to be audiences that just might not get you. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much effort you put into the communication, there might be audiences where it just won't make sense to them. You got to be okay with that too.
Yeah.
All right. Last comment comes from Brian. I really enjoyed the recent episode on self-awareness. I like the idea that you shared about spending time being reflective as a better way to understand ourselves. We agree, Brian. It made me think that part of the process involves seeking input. Okay, so here we go. Rather than just waiting for feedback, we agree, Brian. Brian asked, do you have any advice on how to ask for that feedback that'll encourage people to be honest with you? Really good question. Jen, you got one for that?
So I think there's a couple ways to do it. I do think that it starts, one, with your self-reflection and really thinking about those things that you want to know more about yourself. Because if I went to you, so like pretend we haven't known each other for a million years and you haven't already given me feedback. And I come to you and I'm just like, hey, how do you experience me? You'd be like, oh, like, what parts do you want me to tell you? Right? I need to come to you and say, hey, I'm really trying to be a better public speaker, right? I want to show up on a stage and feel like I'm captivating the room and inspiring them. That is what I go out to do. Can you give me some points of feedback on how you experience me in that setting? So you're giving someone context. You're giving someone almost a space because you're saying, hey, I recognize in myself that this is where I want to be better. Here's where I know that I'm falling a little bit short. Will you be willing to provide me feedback? Because I think it gives someone that space to be open and honest. The other piece that I think is helpful, sometimes it depends on the relationship, is like creating a balance or reciprocity in feedback. So it's like, I'll give you feedback if you give me feedback. So it's like an opportunity to mutually exchange, and like, I'm going to give you something real. So in return, you should give me something real back.
Yeah, I think those are great. And I totally nailed that for me. I'm in complete alignment. I think one of the things that you've done there is you've also reminded ourselves that people are going to respond through the lens of their values. So you coming to me and asking me about some communication feedback, like that makes me excited. And it also gives me a sense of confidence that I can do that with not just conviction, but with clarity, right? I can be really good at coming and asking for general feedback. Well, all I'm going to end up doing is giving you feedback in line with the thing that's most important. And that might not be what you're asking for, right? And so by giving it specific guidelines on it, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, actually, I didn't even realize I did this, but like, yes, you're an expert in communication. So like coming to you. So actually, it's maybe a third caveat I would say is finding people to give you feedback in a space that maybe they have had the experience, or maybe not necessarily just expertise, but maybe know or care or value, because you know that they're going to look at it through the lens of like genuinely being interested in that particular space.
Yeah, I know my friend has dealt with this situation. That should be one of the first people I go and ask feedback for in terms of how I'm showing up in that space, right? So that's awesome. Folks, you've inspired some great conversation, maybe even a few new episodes, as you often have. If you've got something for us, we love to hear from our listeners. Send us an email, Collaboratory@uconn.edu. A lot of folks have been using that mechanism for their longer thought-provoking comments. So send us an email, or we're on LinkedIn, of course, at Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Give us a follow. Connect with Jen and I if you're a listener on LinkedIn. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channel is at UConn CCEI.
Guess what just happened?
No way, you're kidding me.
Hey, did you hear about...
Are you sure about that? I can't believe they... Really?
It's time for Timely Topics.
In this episode's Timely Topics, we're talking about confidence. Where does confidence come from? How do you keep it? And what do you do when you lose it? Jen and I discussed the difference in whether confidence is a state feeling or more of a trait that we hold consistently. And then there's just some that say, fake it till you make it. Does that actually work? Let's find out. All right, Jen, the question is are you confident enough to have this conversation?
We'll see how it goes.
All right. So we've got a great thought-provocative question for everybody listening right now. And we've been having a great debate preparing for this episode. And the question is for our listeners, do you believe that confidence is a state, is a feeling, or do you believe it to be a trait, something that you live consistently with? So Jen, kicking it off to you, is it a state or a trait for you?
Or is it something that you are born with? You have confidence. You just exude confidence. It's part of your personality. It's who you are.
So that would be
something you
that would be
learn
that trait space, right?
Over time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but let's stay in the question here, okay? Do you
I don't like
see
your
it,
question.
Do you see it as something that you regard primarily as being a thing that you kind of experience as a feeling that may ebb and flow throughout the course of a day, or as we often talk about, the relative nature of the audience? Or is it something that's consistent? It's a trait within you that you bring with you through all spaces and may kind of go up or down, but nowhere near the same level of that of a feeling?
I think confidence is very much based on a situation. Like you're either confident to do something or you're not, based on your lived experiences. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
You could be confident that you are going to be able to show up and do your job today because you have been showing up to do your job every day for the last 20 years. You're confident you're going to be able to do that. But if somebody said, hey, can you go make me pick some sort of food item that you can't make? I was going to say, it's not a bagel.
Yeah.
Can Rory go make this?
Yeah.
You'd be like, I'm a pretty confident person in most aspects of my life, but I'm probably not confident that I'm going to be able to go execute on this thing.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to tell you that I think that confidence is very much a state. I believe it is something that you feel. And for our listeners that want to have a debate with me, I would like to propose that confidence for me and the way that I've approached it and helped others with it is something that they feel. And it's something that is relative to the rooms that they're in. So you're saying relative to the context. I actually think that it is much more oriented around the people that are assessing or perceiving or feeling the energy of your confidence. So for me, confidence is something that's relative. It's a social construct, right? And that really that we don't have confidence others have confidence in us, and we may have a perception of how much confidence they have in us in a moment.
That's so interesting. And I love, because most times we're aligned on a lot of things. I am completely opposite. And I believe that confidence is something that you have within yourself. I think it's a true belief in your ability. Like, no matter what, I'm going to be able to do this thing. And I think confidence is derived by that experience. It is an accumulation of things that you sort of pack away and you're able to show up and do the thing. I do think that there's like performative confidence. I think you can show up and exude a level of confidence because you've said, hey, I need to for that minute. But behind the scenes, I think you're kind of freaking out a little bit. I think you're saying, I don't know how great I am going to be at this thing, but I like need other people to believe that I am.
I'm going back to the early days of public speaking, and anybody that's taken a public speaking class will have heard this idea of like, the audience really doesn't know your level of confidence until you show them. Right. So we don't know you're nervous unless you give me a cue that you're nervous. So if we can somehow mask that, or the word you use with performative, we're okay. I'm going to extend that to all confidence. I think all confidence is performance. I think the entire construct of it is one in which we are trying to project to others that they can have a belief in our reliability, in our consistency, our competency to get something done. And for me, and then this is another place to debate here, there's a chicken or an egg conundrum here. Yeah. And you might be chicken and I might be egg here for a second. I believe that confidence comes before the experience. So you're going to do something new, and I'll give you my story, right? So talking about public speaking, I was jarred this week thinking back, because public speaking and confidence, they go hand in hand, and I've spent a lot of time in that space. So I get assigned my course to teach. I'm 22, coming into the UConn Master's Program, Department of Communication, and they say, you're going to teach public speaking. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have the credibility yet to do that. And I don't know whoever, like, I think if you're a listener out there, if you ever taught public speaking, some of the listeners would have done this in our network, right? The very first class that you ever go and teach it because you have no experience, and yet the entire first chapter in any public speaking book is like, you got to have confidence. And you're thinking to yourself, if it's based on experience, where's the confidence coming from? So for me, it had to be manufactured. It had to be something that I created myself and said, I am confident in this moment, even though in reality, no experience to back it up.
So also having joined higher education at a very young age and been, somebody that got a position where I was like, ooh, am I really going to be the one that's going to be able to do this thing? I think that you ask yourself, what are the other experiences that I've had in my life that make me knowledgeable in this space? And I reminded myself again at 21, 22 years old, that was teaching like those intro first year courses. Actually, I am more knowledgeable. I am more experienced than the 17 and 18-year-olds that are sitting in the class just learning for the first time. What lived experiences can I pull in here that maybe are not the exact same thing as me standing up in front of this room and teaching, but what are the experiences that I have had that give me or lend me some credibility? And then I go out and do it. Am I 100% confident in blowing them away and getting like the best reviews on my teaching evaluations? Probably not, but I survived that first semester. And what did I do the second semester? I became incrementally better. I showed up just a little bit more confident because I was like, didn't die last semester in front of that class. They didn't shoo me out, didn't boo me off stage. And then the next one comes. And then all of a sudden now teaching and being a part of experiences where I can show up and I feel like I'm inspiring other people. I'm leading them. I'm teaching them. It's like it's been built over time because those experiences were instilled that I survived.
Let's make sense of this for a second for our listeners. So when we think about confidence from your perspective, Jen, of being more of a trait, one that is built over time with the experiences accumulating and kind of compounding interest in your confidence base, we would recommend to listeners then, you've got to find this balance of going and doing something and then having this moment of self-reflection, right? Where you're like, hey, that, like you said, that was okay, right? So it builds confidence. Mine's a little bit different, and I want to share this, right? Because you know that I believe this, that I believe that confidence is a state, and therefore you could have years of experience and still be walking out to a space and actually in that moment, right, have your confidence completely stripped away because maybe you don't believe the people in that room see you as who you want to be seen as. And so for that, I might ask the question of going, okay, so say you believe in that, or for those of the listeners that might go, yeah, Roy, hey, that one actually relates to me. I know that I should be good at this thing, but boy, I lack confidence sometimes. How do we help that person that shares that perspective? And this is where that phrase, fake it till you make it, comes in. Now I'm going to challenge it. Now I like it. I like the basic kind of idea around it. I'm with, but here's my thing. I don't think any part of it is faking it, right? Like you projecting confidence to somebody, that's real to them. And if it's real to them, then it should be real back to you, right? So in other words, that's where I believe the state nature of it becomes so powerful. And I'll kind of finish on this point to make it maybe meaningful, is that self-talk, the way in which we are going to either hype ourselves up or get others to hype us up, for me, is what's going to help maintain consistent levels of high confidence over the course of your state, over the course of your being. And so I just offer that because I think we probably see it as two ways. And I'm sure there's going to be some folks that might find themselves wondering, how do I build my confidence up if I don't have the experience?
Okay, so I've got about 18 things going through my brain that I want to say.
Start with one.
Oh, okay. Wow. So I think some people lean on the crutch of, I have to be this before I can be that. And I don't believe that. No, I do believe you go out and you just do. Like you have to put yourself out there. You have to just try. But I don't think you go in with the full level of confidence. And I don't think you need to say, I need to be confident before I can do this specific thing. I think you need to say, I'm willing to show up knowing that when all else fails, I know I'm going to be okay. That's what I mean by confidence, that belief that no matter what, people are throwing eggs at you from the audience, I'm okay.
Yeah, the safety
I survived
of it almost. Yeah, there's a safety that comes from that. We talk about this audience thing. One of the pieces of advice that I'd love to offer for folks that may be dealing specifically with lack of confidence in an audience scenario, because that's a lot of where it comes from. Like there's a fear. We talked about fear earlier in the show. So one of the things that I like to try to portray to my public speaking students really early on was that like they had a responsibility to portray confidence because that's what the audience wanted. I genuinely believe if you want to be an effective communicator, you have to understand what the audience's wants, needs, and abilities are. Like that is the essence of to be a great communicator. You know, what do you want? What do you need? And what are your abilities? And if I can meet you on those three things, I've got a shot at being invited back for another opportunity. And I would say to them, it's not about you and your confidence. It's that the audience wants you to be confident so they can have a better experience. And that was the way that I often tried to inspire folks that were struggling to think about, okay, let me stop worrying about myself and let me give the people what they want, because a lot of those people that were feared were also really kind-hearted people. Like they were so empathetic, and they were so worried that they were going to put on a bad performance. The audience was like, I was like, well, let's just change the answer. So to your point, and I agree with you on this, you got to go do. And sometimes that's where like you may not have the trait confidence, but you can have state confidence in the moment to carry you through. And I think we're all capable of making that choice. I think we're all capable of it. It's just like, what are the environments that we need to be able to make that possible?
I go back to thinking about throughout my entire career, sitting at tables or being in rooms where maybe someone didn't believe in my confidence or in my knowledge, my ability to the extent that I did, but still being able to show up. And actually when I am in a position where someone doesn't believe that I can do the thing, oh, does it make me want to go do that 27,000 times more and more effectively and better? And yes, there is a little bit of that. Like I do, unfortunately, care a little bit about what some people think of me and in certain professional environments, because I really care about my job and I care about what I do and how I show up and how I perform. So what do you think about showing up to a room where people like come in with this preconceived notion of like, nah, he doesn't get it, he doesn't know, and still being able to perform despite what those people think of you?
That's a really interesting conundrum from a communication standpoint. When you're self-aware, going back to the last episode, when you're self-aware enough that you have a pretty good, accurate understanding that these folks don't believe you. And we're going to use the word credibility. Yeah. They don't believe that you're an expert, and or they don't have trust in what you're going to do. And you're aware of this and you're knowledgeable of this. Interesting conundrum that you're facing. If you show up with exuberant confidence, despite the fact that you know they're not buying into it, could that actually have a backlash on the exact outcome that you're hoping for, which is for them to believe you, for them to do the things that you want them to do? I think from a persuasive argument standpoint, if we just took that one isolated incident alone, we would say go in and immediately acknowledge, I recognize that you may not see my expertise and my trustworthiness to be in the same space that you'd like it to be. And then you'd actually have poked a hole in their immediate argument, right? So you'd have addressed that lack of credibility in the opening statement, as opposed to doing the thing where you're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on what you think should be regarded. It doesn't matter how many times you say it. They may not want to change their barometer for what they think is credibility. So with that being said, and let's bring it to this part of the conversation, what's the thin line that exists between having great trait confidence in ourselves and then walking it really close to having that ego involved, that almost arrogance, that thing where like we've lacked perspective? Because maybe to that audience, that's the problem, right? Like there's too much confidence. And we talked about this a lot, that maybe great leaders, one of the things that they can do is they can be confident in what they're not good at. And so that balance is interesting.
Yeah. Yes. I think confidence and competence. We talked about this as a kind of like a spectrum, and thinking about, we've all seen leaders that maybe exude some sort of confidence that seems sort of empty or shallow because they're performing for the audience, but they don't necessarily have the competence in the space. I find people, and maybe you see it this way too, when someone says, I actually don't know the answer to that question, I'm going to seek support. Either they point to someone else at the table that's sitting with them or their colleagues, or they say, I'm going to go back and do research. It's like, I like believe in them so much more for not knowing and being so open and honest that they don't know than the ones that try to come up with something because they think they know everything, right?
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing that's just coming to mind for me is I think, again, even though it could be genuine, I think it can be performative. I think great leaders may be sitting and listening to a debate amongst their team, and they know already kind of where they're going and what the answer is. But wouldn't it be brilliant to just go around and still ask everybody else on the team what they think, right? To have the confidence to say, I'm not sure. Olivia, what do you think? I'm not sure. Abby, what do you think? Right now, you're giving everybody space, and I think to me that shows much more confident, and I quite enjoy that. So let's go in this direction for a second. So we've talked about the fact that confident might be something that you kind of have as a steady trait, and relatively speaking, I think over time you build up experience, and you must, as Jen pointed out, you must reflect on those experiences for them to accumulate. If you don't reflect on them, you can't accumulate them. You can't compound interest on something you're not banking, right? So then the second piece of it is, I'm going to tell you, surround yourself with people that make you feel confident. That's going to help that state standpoint. How do you walk back the line? If you know an audience doesn't perceive you as having credibility, it might be in your best interest to acknowledge it. And instead of trying to kind of like overcome it with more confidence, that might actually have a negative effect. You might be perceived as arrogant. Let's go all the way on the spectrum now. It's humility. I think that we agreed that confidence also requires a certain degree of humility. That being able to say, I don't know, is actually quite much more confident than actually saying that you have all the answers. When you can get to a space that you have humility in your confidence, think about that, not confidence in your humility, but humility in your confidence. Now I think you've actually put together the full package that people will receive, and hopefully that you'll garner the type of, rewards that you want from your confidence.
Yeah. I think as we continue to think about this and allow our listeners to think about spaces in which they're confident, or maybe spaces that they've created that erode confidence, I think this is a moment of self-reflection. What are our closing thoughts or things that we hope that our audience will take away?
Yeah, so I have one that stood out for me. And Jen, we have this question now when we prepare for an episode, like, what did we learn as we dove through this? One of the things that I learned was that I don't have as much grace for individuals that lack confidence as may be helpful to them, right? So because I believe it's a state, because I believe it's a choice, I go, be confident. And they're going, no, I don't know how. And I'm thinking, but why? So for me, and for any of our listeners out there who might relate to this perspective, maybe they carry a great series of hype people around them. I think one of the things that you can do is, instead of like maybe trying to kind of force this thing onto somebody to be like, be confident, is to actually instead just go out of your way to compliment and to hype and to give them confidence that comes from their experiences, like what they've done. So I've learned that for me, even though I do believe it's very much a state, I'm going to borrow from your standpoint and say it is accumulated experiences. So go to your team, go to your partners, the people that you want to build up their confidence, and say, hey, you did this thing last week. I thought it was great. And that's a way that you can boost their confidence in a short amount of time, in a short amount of space. And if you do that consistently, I think you can genuinely help people. And then my fingers are crossed that people around you will do the same for you.
For me, I think it's believing in yourself and knowing that you are enough, regardless of what room you're standing in, what opportunities you have or don't. And it's taking those moments that aren't perfect and where maybe you have failed or it didn't go as you wanted and be self-reflective and think about, I survived, on to the next thing. I love the opportunity for challenges. I love the opportunity to learn, and discomfort to me means you're learning and growing. That is such a great gift and experience to have.
And a great way to build confidence.
Yeah.
Awesome conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts on confidence. As always, send us a note. Let us know what you're thinking.
Good idea.
All right, Jen, it's finally my turn this season to offer you a good idea, bad idea segment. So AI is everywhere. It's all we talked about, right? And one of the things that's been showing up on my feeds lately is a lot of like local businesses, organizations. I'm seeing them using clearly generated AI content, particularly videos and particularly pictures, to talk about events that are coming up and just to promote their business, right? So it got me thinking a little bit, right? As somebody who loves to support small businesses and advocates for that authenticity, what do we think, right? Do we think it's a good idea for businesses to rely on AI to generate pictures and videos to communicate messages on behalf of their business to their customers and clients? Does it matter? What are your thoughts on this? You think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
I love the idea of using AI for as many things as we can possibly use it for, to set us up for ideas, to help us comb through thoughts that we already have, to refine, to make things better. I don't love when AI is not AI generated images, content, we know, when it's not in alignment with the brand or the person, and you can tell like it's not a true voice. You haven't properly combed out the data or the information to make it sound like you. It seems like it's just like a stock. It becomes like a stock image, a stock narrative that no longer adds value. But to me, like, we work with startups that maybe don't have their products on the market yet, that maybe don't have it available to take pictures and how it would interact with others. I love the idea of using AI because you can use it in so many different ways now to actually like generate a video of a demo of your product before you actually have it off the production line. That is so valuable. So to me, it's not creating information that misleads your consumer to believe something that is inaccurate or not true. It's allowing us to put that product or service into context in a way that we weren't able to before. Did I answer your question? I think it's a good idea to use AI. I think it's a bad idea to use it in a way that is generic and stock.
I agree. And I just would love to add, I think everything you said I'm in alignment with. The genuine concern that I have is that if we're all going to rely on the same relative AI content, then the individuality, it all looks, and that's what triggered it, is that some of the communities that I'm involved in, some of the organizations I'm a part of, they obviously have different organizations and communities maybe throughout the country. And I'm connected, or I follow some of them. And I'm scrolling in my feed, I'm going, everybody's using the same prompt to design the same thing
template,
for the same event, and it all looks the same. And what used to be a very distinguishable feature, in fact, this is almost funny, there were some organizations that might not have the best, most visually contemporary best practice content, but you knew it was theirs because when you scroll by it, you're like, oh, there's one of their designs. Now I'm scrolling and I don't have that stop moment. I don't have that pause to go, oh, there's an event from somebody that I've been at that event before. It all looked the same. And one of the things that's interesting is, and I'll finish with this idea, is we have spent so much time in the late 90s and early 2000s from a marketing standpoint, simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. And what happened? Everything got square and rectangular, and it got very monochromatic, and it got kind of boring, and it all looked the same. Well, if you look now, some of the brands that are trying to stand out, what are they doing? They want to actually look different. A little bit of messiness is okay. AI isn't going to be messy, right? It's going to go with what we've given it for the last 20 years. So I just worry that like it's not even if it's good or bad to me. It's just like, I just think it's going to take originality away. The creativity is going to go away. And that doesn't excite me.
You know what? And this is like so not even relevant, but we were talking before about how like when things are perfect, it's like too perfect. It's so unbelievable because us as humans, we're not naturally perfect. We don't speak in a cadence and a rhythm that is so beautiful that there's not going to be a word that's going to be stuttered or said wrong. And you and I believe so strongly in that. We want to be authentic. We want to show up. We don't cut right? We don't edit out things. We talk, we stutter. Like how many words when you go back and you listen are said wrong? Well, when we put everything through AI and we just continue to try to like get that perfect output, I think it's going to just change the way that we view things.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things we're going to start really clamoring for is stuff that doesn't actually have that. It's not run through AI and it's just legit. And maybe this is the reawakening that we've wanted to be able to come back together as people and be together. So anyways, I think it's relatively a bad idea to some degree. I think communication is the most important thing that we do in the world. And I think if your business requires you to take a few extra minutes or spend a few extra dollars on communicating in an authentic way that's true to you, I think that's entirely worth it. With that being said, we'll probably see it and use it ourselves this summer. So let us know what you think. It's always great to have you checking in and listening. As you know, please send us an idea for a future episode, a topic, or a guest.
And don't forget, we produce our show right here in the Collaboratory studio at CCEI in the heart of downtown Hartford.
Until next time, we wish you good luck in all of your endeavors.